the fourth China cross-border e-commerce trade fair opened on Monday in Mphuthing on China's southeastern coast. The exhibition has attracted more than 30 cross-border e-commerce platforms from around the world and more than 1,500 exhibitors from across China. Zhou Xixin has more.
At the fourth China cross-border e-commerce trade fair, Nur Hayati from Malaysia is looking for potential Chinese business partners as exporters or investors. She's come to China with a purchasing group from Southeast Asia, which has emerged as one of the regions with the fastest growing e-commerce sectors in the world.
Chinese product is good. Over the years, it has been really good. And a lot of products from Malaysia is made in China as well. And we do a lot of cooperations on Shopee and Lazada. But then if the companies in China can put their products or services in Malaysia and establish some companies or joint venture with Malaysian companies, this also can cut some costs on logistics.
Sharon is from the same purchasing group. She's looking for Chinese food products to sell in Malaysia and beyond, as well as potential Chinese business partners.
What attracts me here is definitely the pricing is so much better compared to other countries, and also the quality over the time has gotten so much better, and the deliverance is so much faster.
This year's trade fair involves many popular live broadcast anchors from Southeast Asia. Many cross-border e-commerce companies are also discussing cooperation with multi-channel network agencies that have live broadcast anchors. As cross-border e-commerce develops in China, enterprises are increasingly aiming to go global with their independent brands, not just their products.
In the past, China was often in the OEM stage, and the brands were mostly in control of companies of developed countries. After the emergence of cross-border e-commerce, we used the internet to make Chinese products directly reach overseas markets and consumers. Through this, we get data feedback so manufacturers can better carry out research and development and design.
At the opening ceremony and the main forum of the trade fair, the focus has been on the global development of cross-border e-commerce and opportunities this presents for Chinese companies going overseas.
Some experts say cross-border e-commerce is China's fastest growing foreign trade avenue. It also has the most potential. This trade fair will enable more Chinese traditional foreign trade companies and emerging e-commerce firms to explore overseas markets and bolster China's national strategy for increasing trade. Zhou Xixin, CGTN, Fuzhou, Fujian Province.
All right, let's take a closer look at China's latest economic data with Yan Liang, Chair and Professor in Economics at Willamette University. Yan, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be with you, Poppie.
All right, now let's get straight to it. And what do you think is the biggest takeaway from today's numbers? What do they tell us about the health of China's economy?
Yeah, I think what I'm seeing is a lot of positive signs, a lot of uplifting numbers. And the two that I'm most interested in, I think are very happy to see, one has to do with the retail sales has grown by 5.5%. And a lot of the retail sales increase are in, for example, automobiles and also home appliances. And we also see the retail sales of services that has gone up, by even more. And so that means people are going out, dining, they're traveling, and all of these are good signs that consumer demand has rebounded. And the second thing I think is very important and helpful is that the fixed asset investment has gone up by 4.2%. But more importantly is when we looked at the private investment, that has gone up by 0.4% in February and January. And that is a reversal of the negative 0.4% growth rate recorded last year. So we're seeing private investments coming back. The private investors are regaining confidence and they're expanding, and their total share of the investment has gone up. So I think those are really good signs that shows, the economy is gaining some strength.
Certainly some encouraging insights there. Let's come to unemployment and its rise. How's that affecting the economy?
Right. So I think the unemployment is actually quite steady. It's 5.2% in January and 5.3% in February this year. And part of the reason is because this year the Spring Festival fell in February instead of January. So we see a very small uptick of the unemployment rate because people are, visiting their hometown. They're not searching for job actively. So I don't think it's a huge problem with that very slight increase. When you look at the youth unemployment, in January, youth unemployment rate is 14.6%, which is slightly lower than what is recorded in December last year, which is at 14.9%. So I think what that means is that there are some improvements in the labor market for the young people, and hopefully with, as we just talked about, the expansion in service sector and also in industrial output growth by 7%, as a reporter just stated. I think with these improvements in production and services sector, hopefully that would add more jobs to the economy.
Now, Yan, what's your take on the boom of Chinese exports and whether that could lead to a trade war down the line?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question. I think we do see some improvements on external demand. So we're looking at, exports of goods in February has gone up in the RMB terms, has gone up, by I believe it's 10%, 10.3% to be exact. So I think there are some improvements on these exports, but I think also more importantly is we see the improvements in terms of the export structures, meaning that China is no longer just exporting the old three, right? The textiles, apparels, luggage goods, and furnitures, and so on. And now China is exporting a lot more on the high-tech segments like EVs, solar panels, and so on. So I think, on the one hand, this means that, China is improving in its industrial, output structure and are able to get more value added in its exports. But on the other hand, like you mentioned, this could somehow, unsettle some of the foreign countries, and they worry that China is going to, occupy the EV markets and so on and so forth. But I think overall, it is about competition, and also it's about China's domestic market absorption. 15% of China's EVs are exported, right? But 85% of those EVs are still consumed at home. So I think, there's still great potential for China to expand its overseas market, but not to completely overwhelm these foreign markets. And last but not the least, I think, China's exports in new energy vehicles and in these green tech equipment, I think they're super helpful for countries to achieve their green transitions. And not to mention, in addition to these Western economies, China has also explored a lot of overseas markets in the global South countries. So I think overall, I'm not too worried about all these sort of trade tensions and trade war.
Now, Yan, one metric slumped is real estate, of course. What's the remedy here?
Yeah, I think that is a very important question. I think when you look at the real estate, in January, February, we're still seeing a really significant decline in, for example, home sales by floor areas that has gone down by 20.5%, by sales that has gone down by 29%. So what that means is that the property sector slump is probably going to continue by still for a while. But again, the silver lining, though, is for one, we're seeing the investment in the real estate sector. The decline has slowed down. It's a contraction by 9% as opposed to 9.6% last year. So that is a silver lining. And also, when we look at the decline in the floor sales, that is still better than December last year. So we're seeing some signs of improvements. So I think going forward, there are very important, policy actions that have been taken place. One is the decline in the cuts of the 5-year LPR, which will help to reduce mortgage interest rate that households would pay. And there's increase in the completion rates of the unfinished properties. So hopefully that will give households more confidence to buy property. And finally, the government has, pledged to increase the investment in the urban village revitalization, in affordable social housing, and also in emergency use, public infrastructure. So all of this hopefully will help to provide more vitality to the real estate market. But that said, I don't think the government is interested in promoting the real estate sector as a growth engine. They probably just wanted to stabilize it going forward.
Well, Yan Liang, thank you so much for your insights there. Appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you, Poppie.